enlightening, inspirational, powerfully refining, and unapologetically controversial. Conversations with the Royal Empress. The entire world knows the secret of who you are. Now is the time to step into your queendom and become the Royal Empress that you're meant to be. One woman at a time. Conversations with the Royal Empress. Now Akila, she's the analytical Empress. Akima, she's the Empress that will challenge you. Now, straighten up your crown and be elevated through conversations. Conversations with the Royal Empress.
Welcome to Conversations with the Royal Empress. I am Dr. Hakima, and joining me is my sister from another mother and my co-host, Akila. Now, we are bringing back one of our former guests. So today we are joined by our guest and co-host for the day, Dr. Lauren Meeks, author of Confessions of a Melanated Queen. You all remember her. She was one of our former guests, and we are bringing her back to join us on our conversation with our current topic. And that topic is, what does it mean to be a helpmeet in a relationship, and how does it bring about success?
I'm glad to be back. Hello.
I'm glad to have you back, but this time you co-hosting with us, girl.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited. This is always a pleasure.
It's Royal Empress meets Melanated Queen, right? Oh. I love it.
Right.
I love that.
Going in today,
Right.
the conversation with the Royal Empress meets Melanated Queen.
That's right. Two podcast creators coming together, right? I love it. That's called Black Girl Power. That's what it's called. We don't compete. We come together and we uplift one another. That's what it's all about.
What a helpmeet should be about. Collaboration.
Yes. Oh yeah, because folks be competing in their relationships. I don't understand that one. We supposed to be helping one another, uplifting one another, not competing.
Right. Absolutely.
So they don't collaborate. Well, Miss Lauren, you've been married for quite a while.
I have been married in June. It will make 11 years.
Oh, wow.
Oh, congratulations. Oh, my God.
Thank you.
That's exciting.
Yeah. 11 years. So, yeah, I have been with my husband 12 years. We married fairly quickly. So
y'all wasn't playing, were y'all?
Yeah, we dated for a year and we married. So it's approaching 11 years now.
And you say that you've been a great helpmeet?
I mean, there were times when I have, and there were times when I think mentally I was not. It has been a process, and I think it depends on how we define that. It goes both ways. I think that we have transitioned in our society where it's very different than what our mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers, what marriage was like for them. It's very different now. So I think that I've had to learn, and I talked about this in that book too. I've had to learn what does being a helpmeet mean to me and for my relationship, because I modeled the first few years of my marriage from my parents, which was interesting because that was my example of what marriage should be. And then I had to realize that he is not my father and I'm not my mother. And so what do we have was the question. And it took a few years to figure that out. And we're still working on it. I mean, it's only 11 years. We want to see 40, 50, 60 years. But, it's in this first decade, it's been a lot of who are we and what are we meant to do together, and respecting the fact that it's very different than what my parents had and what my grandparents had or whoever, So overall, I've tried to be that, but you have to figure out what that means first. And that's been interesting. That's the journey. That's the story.
What does it mean? Now, Hakima, you've been married 20 plus.
Yeah, 23 going on 24 years. And it's something that my husband always say. We're not married. yet we're striving to be married. So meaning that you're always working to improve your marriage, because the moment you figure you got something or you arrive, you start taking people for granted. You start taking a relationship for granted. It loses value because in your mind, oh, I got this. And so you start making mistakes, you start making errors, and then you start feeling like you don't need to improve on something. And so that's our philosophy is we don't have this mastery yet. We're we're working towards perfection. Now once we get, 50, 60 years marriage, then maybe we could say we're married. But at this point we're striving, because even when we make 4 or 5 steps forward, sometimes we go back a step. And in marriage, you're constantly working towards perfection, but you're constantly working towards both people growing together. And sometimes you don't always do that. Sometimes one is growing while the other one is not. And that can create a lot of conflict. But you have to understand that you don't always grow together. Sometimes one has to be that leader spiritually, where they grow in a certain way. And once they get there, they can be like, okay, now let me show my partner, or let me pull my partner along, and when we walk together, and they can see where I'm at, and understand why I had to go through that journey.
I think
Yeah.
that's a really healthy way to look at things too, though, because a lot of people, they get the ring, they have the ceremony, and that's the first thing is that I made it. I was married now, like Miss Sophia said, not Miss Sophia, Miss Sugar Avery. Sugar
Yeah,
Avery
yeah.
said,
I'm
I'm
married
married
now.
now. I was married now, but it's you're right. It's a journey, and I never thought about it like that. But to say that, okay, we're not quite there. We're trying to make it there. You're right, because people throw in the towel over every little argument, and that's not a marriage.
Oh, I did that for the first 5 years. I mean, I was every time we got into an argument, I'm going back home. And so my mother, I would call my mom and be like, I want to come home. My mom would be like, you know what? I need you to grow up. She's like, he hitting you? I'm like, no. Is he cheating on you? I'm like, no. He said this and I'm mad. My mother said, I need you to grow up. She said, first you need to stop comparing him to your daddy, because he's not your daddy. She said, tell me his faults. And then my mom said, okay, that's it. I'm waiting for you to list some more items. I said, no, this is it. She said, well, if I was to write down and read all your dad's faults, you will blow your mind. She said, stop comparing 20-something-year-old man to a 40-something-year-old man. You can't do that. That's unfair to him. He's not your father. You're looking at your father from a child's eyes. Even though you're a grown woman, in your mind, your dad is perfect, and he's not perfect. So you need to get that perfection out your mind and stop trying to look at your husband as if he should be perfect. Start working on yourself. That's what you need to do. And my mother hung up on me. And I was hurt. I was so hurt. But every time I think about it, I thank my mother for that, because she could have been like many mothers. Baby, come on home. I'm going to side with you. But she had to take that neutral point of view and say, my job as your mother is not to side with you, but to guide you and advise you and to definitely check you when you're wrong. And when my mother told me that, stop comparing your husband to your father, that woke me up. And I said, man, I am doing that. Like, and I was always saying, you ain't my daddy. No, he's not my daddy. He's my husband. So I need to start looking at him in the proper context. So I'm so grateful for my mother for not siding with me or even babying me and say, baby, come on home, because I wouldn't be married for 23 years right now if she would have done that. So the most important thing in any relationship or marriage, in order for it to really last, you got to have people in your corner that are for the success of your marriage, not about taking sides, because there's nowhere in the world that you could be 100% right all the time. Sometimes your family got to tell you you're wrong, and they need to say your spouse is right. You're wrong, and we're not gonna take sides with you just because you're family.
I don't be wrong though.
You ain't never wrong.
But
So. Oh, yeah.
I can say honestly that I did not have that. My mother and father, but especially my mother, were the exact opposite. To this day, they will still say to me, "You still got a bedroom up there. You still got a bedroom up there." And she's dead serious about it. And what's interesting is that the first few years of my marriage, the first year and a half, we lived out of state. And so we did not live together before we married. In fact, we married and then I actually moved in together until 3 weeks later because he was in the military. He had to go back to Great Lakes, do some more training. And then we hopped on the U-Haul and drove to Virginia and started our marriage. Now, he knew I couldn't just get in the car and just go home whenever I wanted to. I mean, I could have, but what's the likelihood that, it's not so easy to go down the street and go vent to your parents when they're 900 miles away. So, it was difficult, but I'm glad we were 900 miles away from home because I would have been the person every time we had an argument, I'm right back at their house. I'm talking to them. And we would not have been together today. And so that's something that I couldn't see. Now, a lot of times when a woman, especially a young woman, is in a relationship and the spouse is moving them away, the family is very protective. Like, okay, well, was he trying to beat on you? Is he going to be abusive because he's separating you? And the case for us at the time, I didn't see it, but it was important that we did that because I went from my parents' home to my husband's home. I never had my own home. So I was always under somebody's leadership some kind of way. So it was important that we had that time, for that 90, how long was it? It was 18 months. And we were gone for a year and a half in Virginia before I came back here. And then we lived apart nearly another year and a half. And it was very important that we had that moment just to be alone in a way, because otherwise I would have been right under them. I'm just now in the last few years realizing that I'm their child, but I'm not their child. It took a long time because these are the people who I trusted for the first 25 years of my life. I got married at 25. And now I don't report to you. I don't just listen to you. I have somebody else I'm responsible for who's responsible for me. So had we not had that, we would have been in trouble. I didn't like it at the time because I left my career. I quit my good job and moved with somebody, and I didn't even know what type of money he had, to be honest with you. I mean, that was young love. But
that's young love, ain't it?
That's young love. I wasn't even sure what he had, but we knew we wanted to be together, but I would have been running home because they did say, come home whenever you're ready. You don't have to be in no situation you're unhappy with. That was the advice I got.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting listening to you guys because at 25, the furthest thing away from my mind was marriage. Because I was career oriented, period, and just wasn't going to happen. And it's funny because there was a guy that I really was interested in, and I really liked him, and he wanted to get married. He wanted a wife. But I'm like, I plan to do this on TV and do this. And he told me, I don't want no wife that has to travel and has to do this. We broke up because my thought was that he wants a housewife. He wants somebody who's going to stay here with him. And I think as we're talking about a helpmeet, I think it is kind of defined on a case by case basis. What is it? How do you help that person meet what they need to meet in life? And so if there is a man who desires that woman to be at home to just, whatever, and that's not who you are, then how can you be the helpmeet to him that he needs to be if that's not what you do? Or if he's somebody who he wants a woman who has ambition and who is actually in a position to help him to grow in what he's doing. Well, then he can't have somebody who has no any kind of savvy, I would say, to even understand what it is that he's doing. Then how can she really be a helpmeet? It's like, so I think one of the things that we don't do is that we don't really look at what it is that people need and what is it that you need to help them to reach. And are you really qualified to do it?
Did you just say that? Can you expound on that? Damn, that was heavy. Are you qualified to help?
Are you qualified to do it? If you have a man who says, okay, you know what, baby, you can stay at home. I'll take care of you. I have this business that I'm building and I can run, but you can't help him to build. How do you help him meet what he needs? Sure, you can cook. You know, you can clean
Betty
that,
Crocker in the kitchen, huh?
but can you do some bookkeeping? Can you set up business meetings for him? Can you help drum up business for him? I mean, so it's like, I don't get it. And it reminds me of when we were at the retreat, when we went to the organic farm.
I was just going to say that.
That's right. They were the epitome to me. What did she tell us? She said, I am not a farmer.
She made that
My
clear.
husband does. This is my husband's farm. This is what he does. She says, but he don't know nothing about no bookkeeping.
That's right. She did.
He don't know nothing. She was probably his biggest salesperson. She made me fall in love with the farm.
Yes, I fell in love with her and the farm.
Exactly.
And her cooking too.
Right. But I'm sure she cooks and she cleans and she does all, and she hosts and she does all those beautiful things, helped him raise his babies and all of that.
Yeah.
But he can rest assured that the business that he has, if something happened to him tomorrow, that business would not fall apart.
Ooh, teach on that, because that woman, man, remarkable woman.
And so I'm saying that, you know, when we talk about that, what do you do? We see people nowadays, and the wife is there, you know, maybe she's at home and she's doing all these things and the man is so happy and blah, blah, blah. And if something happens to him, and then the community got to come in and take care of the wife and his family.
Because he ain't had no life insurance.
Not even just life insurance. If he had a business, why doesn't she know enough
to keep it running?
To keep it running.
She's just been there for show.
Or just not really understanding, like you said, wasn't really qualified. Maybe the man didn't trust her enough to bring her in, or maybe he was just being selfish. And this is my goal, and my marriage is separate from this. I want to read the definition of Helpmeet. And it is defined as a helpful companion or partner, especially one's husband or wife. That you talk about, it falls in line with what you were saying, Akila. The companion or partner. Partner, like, you have partners in a business. And a lot of people understand one of the successful keys to a marriage is understanding it's an institution. You have to apply business-like skills to a marriage. A partner, I mean, man, that's somebody that is going to work hand in hand to help you achieve your goals. So I think that when you were speaking on that, Akila, you touched right on the definition of help me. Just to help people out, the synonyms for what a helpmate is: a companion, a partner, an assistant. So sometimes you gotta take an assistant role to help your partner be successful. You can't be running every damn thing. Sometimes sisters be trying to run a relationship. I'm this, I'm that, but you a helpmeet, sister. You not the man. You his helpmeet. You a helper. You an attendant. You an escort. You're going on a journey with them. It's not your journey. It's a journey for both of you all. But sometimes, as helpmeets, we encounter what is called role ambiguity, when you don't know your role. And sometimes as women, we don't seem to know our role. We competing with our man, or we trying to downplay what he brings. Well, I make more than you, or I'm this, I'm that, in my job, I'm this. They want to come home with their titles, and then they want to get their man orders like he worked for them. And then they don't understand why this is destroying the fabric of their marriage or relationship.
Of course, you know me when you say certain things, because you know I love to rock. Mm-hmm. And the rock says, know your role.
But is it not true? I mean,
No, it is. I mean, but I'm just saying, you have to know your role. But
you gotta know when to take a back seat and when to say, I'm gonna let this man, he got a goal. I'm not gonna, I've had several brothers tell me I want to start a business, but my wife saying you need to stay on that job. If he's not happy. We're not saying, don't tell him, yeah, baby, quit your job and we start your business tomorrow. No, you have to be wise enough to guide him and say, baby, you gotta steal away. You just can't quit your job and then decide to do your business. You got to steal away. Work on perfecting your business. Do your research. Why don't you do some research for him and help him figure out a location is important in the business? You know, baby, you got to have capital. So while you working, I'm gonna manage the money to help you come up with the money for your business, so it's not taken away from my household. We have to learn how to be that helpmeet when our husbands have roles, and not acting as if he's our helpmeet. He's not our helpmeet. We're his help.
And part of it is that women are coming into these relationships with these preconceived notions about what they believe relationship is about. Is a lot of social conditioning, their mothers, the media, what they read in their feminist course, whatever they took in college, you know, whatever this,
You say feminist course.
whatever they, and I think that has a lot to do with it too, is that, you know, people have an idea, they have imagined and fantasized about what they believe life was like without considering the personality of the person who they will actually spend this time with and build this life with. So everything has been one-sided. This is what I see myself doing. This is what he's going to do. We're going to have these children. They're going to have these names, and I'm going to work here and I'm going to do that. And you're not taking into consideration the shifts that may take place, you know, the challenges, the tragedies, the ups and the downs, and how you had to be able to move along with that person and what that looks like. And that's the work. That's the hard part. That's the difficult part that nobody thinks about, you know. And so that has a lot to do with it, though, because, you know, when I first got married, I was working and I was in a career, and then all of a sudden I wasn't. And then he was in a career, and then all of a sudden he wasn't. And then I went back to that career. You know, you go back and forth. And that was a part of our struggle was, okay, this time I need your support. Okay, now I need your support in this way. But you can't plan for those things, you know. So I think a lot of it is just this preconceived notion of what people believe marriage is supposed to be about, but they really don't take into account what their relationship will look like and how they might need to step aside and put their needs aside, their wants and desires aside to support that person, vice versa.
That reminds me of the conversation that I was telling you, and how we actually got on this topic was that I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were talking about relationships, and really what he asked, the question, how it started out, he asked me, are men intimidated by you because you're an independent woman? That's how the conversation began. And of course, I said, my answer was no. I said, I don't use that terminology. I said, I don't think anybody is intimidated by me. Whether somebody is that way or not, it's just not in my mindset to think, to even think like that. But then we started talking about relationships and what a helpmeet is. And things change depending on where you are in your life. When you're younger and you're getting married, what a helpmeet may be at 25, it's not going to be the same thing at 45. Because the needs change. The goals change. All of that changes. And then when you are later getting into relationships later in life, it's different. And so whereas if I got married at 21, we probably on equal footing. We're both young. Nobody really has anything, more than likely. And so, whatever. But when you get older, be it male or female, and what he and I were talking about is, you don't get with people that don't have none, that don't have just as much as you have to lose. Because then how do they value what it is you're walking into? Because if they take you down, no harm, no foul. They didn't have nothing, no way. They didn't. And so, or understanding that it's work to come in and be a support system so that you can maintain. You don't come into a situation and you offer nothing. You bring nothing to the table. But so many of us get in these relationships where somebody don't have nothing that they're bringing to the table. And we're not talking about money all the time. Sometimes it's resources. Sometimes it's intellect. I mean, it's so many things that we have to offer to one another. And, we sit up looking at, It was like Belle Biv DeVoe say, don't trust a big butt and a smile. She got to have more than that.
Hey, but when if that's all you want, then don't be mad when you got a woman that ain't bringing no value, nothing.
Yeah.
Because you didn't require nothing. Because ain't no value associated to no big butt. I'm sorry. That ain't gonna help you. Might bear you a couple of children, but your children won't have no intelligence.
Got some breeder hips.
Right. But your children gonna be dumb and say you're rebellious, don't respect you, tell them what to do, they ain't gonna listen.
That's right.
Because the rebellious child came from the rebellious woman that you didn't even know was rebellious because all you cared about was what she was working with physically. So when that's the only requirement that a man has, he can't be mad when that's all he get. And the same with sisters, you know how we get, girl, he fine. Okay, but then 2-3 months later, he crazy. Girl, he was crazy when he was fine when you met him. And if every dude that you meet is crazy, I gotta look at you because crazy breeds crazy. And if every dude that you run into is crazy, you crazy.
Something ain't right. Something not right. But we don't. And so like he was talking about how he had jobs before, but he's an artist. And what did he need in his wife? You know, his wife wasn't a stay-at-home wife. She worked. But she was able to, he told me, he said, I don't do anything business-wise without discussing it with my wife.
Okay.
He said some of my ideas, she has ideas for stuff. He was like, when he went to an art show, somebody said something to them because she was there helping him set his stuff up. That's a help meet. But then, so he was saying, I look at this as a man when I'm looking at, because he's still a man, you see all these other women out here, women see you and they're looking at you. And he says, man, I look at what I got at home. And then these women out here, and he was like, I'm not ready to lose this. Looking over here at somebody that probably can't offer me half of what my wife is giving to me.
Teach on that. Value.
Sometimes you'll mess around and that help meet, you'll lose that help meet. and then and all you go out there and get is somebody that you need to help. But he and I were talking and he was like, I would never be with any woman that had less to lose than me. Just wouldn't do it. Now, maybe at 20, he would have, but as an older person, like.
Yeah, as you get older, you acquire your assets. So, I mean, it gets deeper. I mean, it's like a corporation. You know what I mean? You have assets, you have liquidity, you got children, you got so much invested. So you're right. If you at a certain age and you require so much, physically, intellectually, spiritually, you know, you may be a very spiritual person and you're thinking, okay, if I'm later in life looking for help me or someone to be with, what spiritual level are they on? Are they gonna match my level of spirituality, or are they gonna exceed my level of spirituality? I remember when I was a little girl, I had a list that I wrote of. It was like my list that I would talk to Allah about, and I would say, these are the qualities that I want in a man, and one of the top 3, and it never changed over the course of my growth. It was, I wanted a spiritual man. I wanted a man that could teach me spiritually. And if you're a spiritual person, that's going to be a requirement. Like you said, it's not always about money. It's not always about assets. It could be intellect. It could be emotional support. Like you said, every relationship is customized. It's based on what you both need, what you both yearn, what you both desire, and what this person brings that you lack, and vice versa. Man, it's very important that you be equally yoked.
But understand what equally yoked means, because when people hear equally yoked, they go straight to religion.
Right.
And not all of what
that's the level they own. Yeah. I mean, like I was saying, I wanted spirituality, so I couldn't just get. It was brothers that I was interested in, but I'm like, spiritually, he's not. That's not. He didn't work on my list. He wasn't what I needed. And for me, spiritually, I needed a man that was either spiritually on my level or exceeded that. And my husband exceeded that. So I said, okay, I can work with that. When I met my husband, he had no job. And I asked him one question: why you don't have no job? And when he said, I'm fresh out the military. I just got out the military. So then I said, well, how many years did you do in the military? It's 12, somewhere between 12 to 15 years. I said, oh, he could commit to a
Right.
relationship. If you commit that many years to the military, oh yeah, you could commit to relationship. So as I talked to him and talked to people who knew him, I said, oh, he'll get a job. That ain't nothing. So of course you ain't gonna get out the military today and have a job tomorrow. But I wanted to look at what he was capable of investing or what he's invested in his own personal life. What was his personal accomplishment? So, I mean, you're right. You do have to have that person that's equally yoked, and what's equally yoked for you may not be equally yoked for me. So I thank you for pointing that out. But for me, equally yoked is someone that's got to be on a certain spiritual level.
Yeah. And I felt the same way. I had a similar list, and I was in the same situation where when I met my husband, he was in between different. He had just served 4 years, and he was getting ready to re-enlist, and he was in a reserve for a year. And I met him then, and I met him at work, the place that I love working at so much. And I'm like, "What you been doing the last few years?" I have a career, and he said, "Well, I was in the military." I said, "Okay." So like you, I understood that. Was interested. A very difficult conversation we recently had was, God forbid something happened to one of us. If we have a child, if you were to remarry, now what are we looking at? I mean, no one wants to really think about that, but we had to have that conversation. Like if I was to pass on, if he was to pass on, and one of us decided to remarry, now we have to now come together, decide on what our qualifications are, because now we have a child that we're responsible for. As long as he's underage, we need to talk about what that will look like. Because I don't want to be in the ground and you bring somebody up in here, you know, who wouldn't love or treat him the way his mother tried to, you know, at least try to, you know, to do what's right. A lot of times men, they lose their wives and become widowed, and they struggle, and they just want a replacement. They want somebody to come in because they're not used to not having a wife. I'm pretty sure that could go along the same way with women. So we had to have a conversation about what that would look like. And he talked to me about it. He said, I could tell you what I'm seeing out here now, and it would be very difficult for me to remarry. But, you know, we should talk about these things. And so what once used to be my list of things I wanted, now I have to think about, you know, after we've built a home together and we're raising a child and we've brought up this family, if I'm not here with you one day, what do you need? What are your needs now? Because you were not 25 anymore. You know, whether it happens today or 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what do you think at this moment your needs would be? Because we need to have this conversation so that we don't just hop into situations because we're emotional, we're grieving, and we don't want to be alone. And that was, to me, a tough conversation to have.
That's such a mature conversation to have. That is such a real conversation to have. That to me is what a Helpmeet does, because you're trying to help him to meet goals, even if you're not even here.
Ew. I love it. Y'all, I just said that word too many times. My mother hear this podcast, she gonna be mad at me. You be cursing
it's like
too much.
Song, you know what I want for you, even if you're not with me. Yeah. So
yeah, you go with them soul lyrics. I tell you, boy. She was a songwriter in her former life.
I see. Yeah, but it was real. I mean, and he had been talking about it. I wasn't ready to have that conversation. He had been saying, he went so far as to say, if I'm sick and I'm you know, paralyzed and and I can't move. His brother was like, he did. He said this to me. He said, I know you'll take care of me. He said, but I want a contingency plan. You need to have somebody in here to take care of this home. And I'm like, look, okay, now leave it. Okay, you got either one, two choices. You live or you're gonna die. We can't talk about somebody coming in here while you're still in here. But he was mature enough to have that conversation. I was not. I'm like, as long as, because I think the B. Smith conversation came up maybe.
Hold up. I was just thinking about that. I was like, hold up now. We ain't ready to have no B. Smith, what you got coming up in here.
You know, and I said I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. But I do realize that if I am in the ground, you still need to live. If my son is in this house, I just want you to have X, Y, Z for him. You know, these are the things that I want, because we don't know, tomorrow's not promised. So I had to make a step to have that conversation. But yeah, he was ready to talk about, if he here and he off in the corner somewhere. It was a couple of things. There was another comment. It was not B. Smith, but it was also Stephen Hawkins. We saw his movie. He had been, in a wheelchair with his wife and their entire marriage, and the struggles they went through, with him and his disability and what that looked like. And so that sparked a real conversation for us. And I'm like, it goes to show our growth. It goes to show our growth and how we have learned to really, truly love one another, because it takes a whole lot more than me, and what I want and my ego, when you're sharing a life and somebody else's life, our underage child together. So, God forbid, we don't have to really address this, and it doesn't happen. But if it does, we've had the conversation.
I want to read what in scripture says about woman being a helpmeet. So just want to read one. It's so many scriptures that we can pull from. I just want to pull from one. Genesis 2:18. And the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him. And I think, when you start to mention, Bible scriptures or Quranic scriptures, people, they don't really want to listen, or they feel like, oh, that's just too old fashioned. But it's laid out right there in scripture what the role of the woman is, and it's living proof for those who've been married for a long time. When you talk to them, this is, and they paraphrasing in so many words, this is an example of their relationship. That woman is that supportive role, that helpmeet. She's that co-creator. That's when a man says, I want a home, she make it a house. When a man says, I want a family, and then she gives him children. The woman is the one that helps the man meet his goals, help that goal go from his mind, it become physical. That's what the value that the woman brings. And when you're a true helpmeet, that's what you do, whether it's on a physical level and you bring forth a family, or on a spiritual level where you help him grow into the man of God that he was created to be. And so often as women, we come into a relationship with the lack of what our role is and what value we bring to that relationship. We are co-creators, and we create on many levels. And in our relationship, this is what we do. If a man say, I want to start a business, or, I want to be more fit. Well, if he say he want to be more fit, you need to go to the grocery store and buy healthy foods and cook them healthy foods, and stop stopping at McDonald's or wherever to get him something to eat. So, we devalue ourselves. Just as society took woman out of the Trinity, we need to put the woman back in the Trinity and say we have value, and we need to go into our relationships with that value and understand that we are here to help our men meet their goal of being God and bringing that into fruition on earth.
I agree. I remember when I was first dating my husband, I asked him for his social security number. And I said, I'm getting ready to do I'm going to do a credit check on you. And he got upset immediately, and he was like, well, we might as well break up now because my credit ain't this. I said, no, it's not even about that. I said, I need to know, because if we're going to do this, we're going to do it together. We're going to make sure that we understand what we're working with. We both have goals. There are things you want. And I know that I was brought up a little different than he was in some ways. So, I said, let's look and talk about it together, and let's go through this. And line item by line item, we addressed it. And some of that took years for both of us on his end and mine. But I said, we need to have this conversation, because I knew early on that I knew that much, that it was part of my responsibility to make sure that I help him become the best man he can be. We're young. We're just starting off. You're in the military. I'm in my career. We've had two different paths coming up, but if we're going to merge and make this thing right together, let's put it all out there. And so that's something we laugh about now, because he was very offended by that, but he gave it to me. and I said, okay, so this is what we got. This is what we need to work on, and we started that before we went and got the rings, before we said I do. We went on and put that out there so that because you had to be honest. You talking about buying a home, you talking about building a business and all these things. Well, nobody wants to get into a situation where they don't quite understand and it's not clear to them. So we just want I wanted transparency. I think that later on he understood why and he appreciated it, and I was able to help him through that. And there are things that he's done the same for me, things I had no idea about. I'm completely oblivious to certain stuff, and that's where he steps in. So it goes both ways.
A qualified woman with a qualified man.
Correct.
People have to be qualified to help you meet your goals.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the bottom line. And it doesn't mean that somebody has to have 50 million degrees or anything of that nature. You have to have something to offer. And it's just too many people that are getting in relationships and they're not getting in relationships with an open mind, with open eyes. They're not asking questions, and then they wonder why things are not happening the right way. Well, she doesn't do this, she doesn't do that. You hear men complaining all the time. You didn't know that before you got, what did you ask this woman? What did you ask her? What did you say you needed from her? Now, if you said, this is what I need, and she said, okay, and then you get in there and she's not living up to what she says, or vice versa, because people do lie. But then how do you test it? Are there any trials? Is it anything? Do you know what? You just take somebody's word for anything? They don't have to show and prove nothing? I mean, it's crazy. I had another situation where a friend of mine married this woman. It was a long distance relationship. And he married her. He left them because of his career. He could move. And he left and he married her. But here was the thing. All while they were dating, when he would visit her, her house was clean. She was cooking great food. All of this stuff was going on. When he uprooted and moved there, oh, and then she told him she had great credit. That reminded me of that when you mentioned the credit thing, Laura. She had this great credit. She had these goals she wanted to open these businesses, all of this stuff, right? So he's like, man, I got a winner. He got there, he said he had to pay about 10 to 12 past due bills that she had. Credit was not what she said, and she was junky as all get out. Like would come in the house and just drop her clothes wherever she walked in and took them off.
She sent her representative to to entice him.
Or that she thought she was married. Maybe she thought she had him. See, and go back to that.
Yeah.
Thinking we ain't got to work hard no more for the person. Well, I got you now, so all that I did, true. I don't need to do no more.
I mean, you would think in the beginning, though, my God, like as soon as he get to the door, like, and he said he even hired a maid, and she got worse.
Damn, she got worse.
She got worse after the maid came in. I guess she was like, please, I really don't have to do nothing now. So I'm just saying that we really have to be careful, because here's this person, he has this going on, and she's saying, this is what I want to do. So he's like, okay, well, guess what? You don't have to work for these couple of years. Focus on what it is, the business that you want to set up and all of this. Nothing ever happened. So imagine if she had actually been who he thought she was going to be, where they could have been, because he was investing in her to build what it was she said she wanted to build for the both. We have to make sure
herself as a helpmeet. It seems like
you can't let people play with you.
It's too much of a time commitment, investment. It's marriage is way too serious. Sharing your life with somebody to not be transparent and upfront, with a person. And that has happened. I've seen that. And, I think we all did little things that, as you get to know a person, you realize, okay, this is going on. But when something that blatant happens very early on, that's very alarming.
They are divorced.
That didn't last. She seems very selfish and just like,
well, I don't know all of that. I heard his version. But
Yes, two sides to every
but
story.
they are divorced. I can tell you that. So,
Well, I want
and
to read a quote from a book that I really like. It's actually the Royal Empress Book of the Month. I'll tell you the name of the book once I read the quote. So, society celebrates independent women, feminism, and doing bad all by myself. I don't believe that strength lies in independence. It is hanging in there with someone who has made mistakes. Strength is in forgiveness. Strength is in taking your educated hat off and letting him take care of it. Dr. Lauren Meeks, Confessions of a Melanated Queen, page 33.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
love that because, oftentimes as women, we want to bring our titles and education into a relationship, and that conflicts with our role as a helpmeet. Take all your education and your title and use that to help your man meet his goal, not to try to lord over him with it. And I just thought that was a very timely quote of it's teamwork. I'm not here to tear you down with what I've accomplished. I'm here to help you meet your goal. I'm gonna use what I've acquired to help you. And that quote to me, that captivated that aspect of a help me and understanding that I'm here to help you, to assist you, even in your worst times. I'm here with you. I'm
And
so
then that,
impressed with that.
thank you. No, and thank you for sharing that. It's interesting because a few chapters before that, when I said screw your corner office and I shared about how I had lost my career and I was fired from my job and all that was the beginning of me really understanding the mindset I was in all that time. See, I had this cookie cutter approach to life. I'm going to graduate from high school. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a master's degree. And then I'm going to buy my own home. And then I'm going to get married. And then I'm going to have kids. And then X, Y, Z. I'm going to retire, all is well. I had this plan of action. And so I was doing very well with that plan until a couple of things happened. One, I left that career to get married. That was already what I consider a monkey wrench at the time. But then I got back on track because when he was deployed, he said, you know what, maybe you go back to your job since you love it so much, because that's all you talk about. Go back to your job. I'm going to finish this term out with the military, and then they're going to promote you. And he was right. I got promoted and things were going well. I was back on track. I had my baby. Life was perfect. And then one day it wasn't there anymore. I didn't have that job anymore. And I had to turn to the person who I was always running away from. I was very career-minded only. It's nothing. And I'm still for being career-minded because, that's a whole nother story, but women do have to take care of themselves. We've touched on that, but I had to learn how to peel off some of that and give the piece of me that he fell in love with. I couldn't be director of this federal program at home. I couldn't be, all these other, personalities that I was able to kind of acquire throughout my walk at home. I had to give a piece for him that had nothing to do with any of that and just be just my bare soul and be myself. So that's where a lot of that came from, because it one day I sat down and realized, okay, this is why God allowed this to happen. You got to look around one day and see who's really in your corner. That's your husband and now your child. And when everybody else is gone, he's still there. So, and then the forgiveness part and all that comes with it. So yeah, I really meant that. Thank you for sharing that. It took some time, and I'm still learning. I'm learning how to, this is something new that I really had to address with myself, is that, and I think it was my husband who really brought it up first. He said to me one day, he said, you always, say like these cliches, like we're best friends. You don't marry people like, I'm married to my best friend. He was like, but am I really your friend? He said, I'm going to ask you, this is why I'm asking you, am I your friend? He said, because true best friends can tell one another anything and it not be about, my ego won't allow me to hear that because I'm your wife. Like there are times when I've had to really listen to his true thoughts about things. And I'm like, okay, does he remember I'm married to him? Like, you sharing these things, but wow. But I had to take myself out of it and see him as a person. I'd rather him come to me than whomever. So it's a journey, but really truly just allowing people to be their authentic selves when they are willing to share their lives with you. And so that's where some of that came from. And I think that I can't remember page 33 if that was a chapter that said I love you but I don't like you, but I use a lot of clickbait titles in the book, but I did that just to garner attention. But the truth is that, you know, there are moments when you're always hopefully in love, but you have moments when you don't always like that person for that moment, that day. But what does really being a support system look like? It's moving beyond your own selfish thoughts, your desires, your feelings, and really truly being there for that person. And so that was that. Being a helpmeet is really truly work, and it is not for someone who is out for self. It's not for someone who just wants to have the ring and flash it. It's not for someone who just wants to be able to say, I'm adding this to my bucket list, I'm somebody's wife. You know, it's really a ministry. If you look at it, it's really a ministry, because that's why you have so many people who can say, we went through infidelity, we went through lies, we went through financial issues, we went through foreclosures, and we've lost this. Unfortunately, you've had people who's lost children together, and they're still able to make it. You know, what was that truly like? That's the journey. That's the fire. And so, yeah, as much as I adore my parents, and I mentioned that in the book as well, that I was trying to model our life after theirs, I had to learn how to stop that, because I'm not them. We are not them. They're very different people. In fact, they were married twice. Each of them were both married before one another. My husband and I, we've only had each other. And so they had room to grow. They don't tell those stories as much. I only knew what I saw with them. So I'm still learning how to do that. And I can honestly say it's only been the last few years that I've woke up one day and realized, okay, it is myself and it's him and it's our child, and we have a very different life, and I can still love home and reflect on those things. But what does this look like for me? So no, I can't just go back to that bedroom at mom and daddy house. I can, but I mean, that's not what this is about. I don't think that's what God will want me to do. So that's where some of that came from. Again, thanks for sharing that.
That's all I was thinking about. Is like, I know that's right. No, ma, y'all keep that bed. Let my son sleep in there when he goes.
Exactly. But you know what I will do though? I will go on the Sun Rose retreat, and that's the bedroom I'm gonna go to when I need to get away.
You ain't never lied.
That's
You ain't lied. I ain't want to leave that bedroom.
Yeah. That's why we'll go home. And those are the things that I think that we need, men and women. We need a moment. We need a place to go. You know, men, they have their men ministries and the things that they do. And women have things that are important, because you have to rejuvenate. You have to sometimes step away from a situation for a little while, not leave, not separate necessarily, but just take a moment, 6-7 days, whatever the case may be, and to reflect. And, you know, and Akila, I'll share with you, I came home and my husband was like, you could go to this thing every year if you want to, because I learned so much about, you know, just even our diet and sacrificing certain things, going without certain things, being exposed to other things, and not to just kind of, you know, shift the conversation to that. But I mean, that those things are important. And so he appreciated me. And he saw that I had learned something and that I had a chance to really reflect, and he can appreciate me more, because if I'm tired, then I can't. If I'm too tired, I'm not going to be a good support system for you. I'm overwhelmed, you know. And so I may be approaching that again. I just had a big event, you know, you got things going on. You got to take a moment. You have to take a moment. And so that's part of it too, because 10 years ago, he was always gone, and I was mad because he was traveling the world. He was calling me from Spain and Sweden. And I'm at home with a new baby. 10 years ago, I was pregnant. I'm a new mom. And you out hanging out, in my opinion. So we're at the moment now where it's like, okay, now it's your turn. And yes, I'm going to work and make sure that I can afford for you to have this opportunity, because I know what you've done for me. So the roles change.
Okay, is that appreciation? Oh, my Lord.
I think so.
Well, recharging batteries is huge. Have to, it's just like a car. When it runs out of gasoline, it doesn't run anymore. So you have to refuel it. And it's the same thing that we have to do as women, is refuel and step away and figure out things that we need to do so that we are better in our homes for our families. And whatever you need to do to get that done, that's great. But also know that men need the same thing.
That's right. So, they do. They do.
You see, that brings us to our challenge aspect of our show. You know, I'm a challenger, right? Lauren, you know, I got a challenge. Akila, You know, I got a challenge.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna say this. We have to put, as women, we have to put ourselves back in this Trinity. We are in that equation. It's man, woman, child. That is the Black family's Trinity. That's our Trinity. We got to put ourselves back in there, and we have to add value and understand that our man can't do it without us. He needs us to help him, and we are the co-creators. And the only way that he can create, he needs us. He can create on that mental, physical, and spiritual level. We are needed, and we add value there. So please understand the value that you add and that you are a true helpmeet. 2, take them titles, that money, all that. Do not bring that in your household. I don't care if you're the boss at work, you're not the boss at home. You're here to help them. You're a team. That's the leader in the household is it's God, it's man, and then it's woman, and then it's child. That's the proper hierarchy. That's the spiritual hierarchy. That's my challenges for today. Lauren, I want to thank you so much for joining us this time as a co-host.
It's my pleasure.
Oh my God, I was just so full. I wish we can go on for like another 2 or 3 hours. We could. We just have to bring you back on. That's just it. Do you have a last word? Any last words that you would like to say before we close out?
Oh, yeah, sure. I would like to tell people, just try to trust the process. Always, you keep God first, and you pray over things, and you meditate, and don't lose your identity, but trust the process, because society, the things we see on television, they influence us to believe whatever is happening, the current trends. And, when you look at people who have grown together 60, 70 years, it wasn't always a straight path. It was hills and mountains and valleys and all types of things, roadblocks. And it's how you navigate that I think makes a difference. I watched my grandparents maintain their marriage for 40 years until the death of my grandfather. My parents have been married nearly 40 years. I've been married 11. None of them had an easy path, but just trust the process and put God first and keep your faith, and you'll be okay.
All right. Well, I want to thank our listeners for tuning in. I hope you appreciated tonight's show, because I sure did. I really enjoyed our guest. I really enjoyed my co-host. This topic was very well needed. We look forward to you joining us next week. And also, what I want you to do is visit www.confessionsofamelanated.queen.com. Check out the book, buy it, but also check out the podcast.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Conversations with the Royal Empress. Tune in next week for another enlightening conversation. For more information on the Royal Empress, please visit the website royalempress.org. You can also follow the Royal Empress on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Conversations with the Royal Empress is a subsidiary of the Royal Empress organization. All rights reserved.